Well, today I'm going to be talking about stevia because it's the most common question I get as an herbalist traveling around the country is what sweetener can I use and is it safe to use stevia? Now, you wonder why that is the most common question I get because people have a lot of different health issues. But the reality is the biggest thing going on these days in health is obesity, diabetes, and people are looking for natural sweeteners, things that do not spike their blood sugar, and so they can enjoy baked goods and different types of foods. Now, it's okay that you use stevia as a sweetener because it does not raise your blood sugar at all. It will not cause the spikes that other sweeteners do. But the reality is that you should be on some sort of diet that eliminates your cravings for sweets. But in the meantime, stevia is a great replacement, but very few people know much about it. And as an herbalist, I actually love the original product that came out 20 years ago. And if anybody remembers it, it was a dark black, almost like a syrup that looked maybe the consistency of maple syrup, but it was a lot darker, and you only needed a drop. It was very, very sweet, but it had an almost like molasses flavor to it. That was the original extract on the market, and it was made by just soaking the leaves in water for a few days and extracting the actual sweet part of the herb out of it. And it came out looking a little bit like molasses. And it was actually something they called a 4-to-1 extract, meaning it took 4 pounds of herb to get a pound of that liquid that they could use as a sweetener. Now today you don't see that very much on the market because they've now gotten to the point where they can process it in a more high-tech fashion. And what they do is they take the one active chemical out, the really sweet chemical, and it's called rubinia. I think it's pronounced that way. It's a really odd word. But they take one fraction of that out, and then they add it to water, and it's a very clear liquid and just off the charts sweet. And when you buy it as a manufacturer, because I buy these things as a manufacturer of different herb products, it's a very white powder. It almost looks like the powdered sugar you would buy for certain baking, that white bag of fluffy powder. And you need very, very little of it because it's so sweet. The problem is it has a little bit of an aftertaste to it, although they have some new ones now that don't. But that liquid is what most people know because it's sold in the health food stores, and it takes very, very little to add to your stuff. Now, a lot of people don't like it because it's very hard to regulate the taste putting it in a product. And by itself, that type of stevia doesn't have any body to it, meaning that it works best combined with another sweetener, something like even if you combined it with sugar, where then you could use half as much sugar because the stevia added the extra sweetness without the extra calories. In fact, I use it in a product of mine with fructose because I can use very little fructose, and the stevia will balance out the sweetener, and the little bit of fructose will give it some body. And that's what you have to do when you're making things. It's a formula of sweeteners in the product. Now, the original stevia, most people don't have access to that, or they don't really know much about it. But as an herbalist, I can buy that from Chinese herb companies in an extract. In fact, I get it in 50-kilo drums because I use it for something else. And it's a dark brown powder that has a molasses taste to it. And what I love about it and why I use it is because the herb itself has herbal properties to it. Because you haven't taken every single thing out of it to make a sweetener, it still has its original synergistic blend of minerals and nutrients that perform a certain function in an herb formula. And that type of stevia in an herb formula actually regulates your blood sugar. So it could be added to formulas for diabetes or anything that helps regulate your blood sugar. I have it in my drink and in my stress formula because regulating your blood sugar, having that little base of extra minerals in it, just helps everything in the way that formula works to build blood and to balance out your entire system. So I love stevia as an herb, and I recommend it to anybody who wants to have a sweetener that they keep in the house to use instead of sugar. But today, what's really good about today is that everything has got so high tech that you can actually buy the white stevia powder mixed with other ingredients, so it's easier to regulate it and to figure out what the dose is. Most often you'll find it combined with something called erythritol, which is a sweetener, an alcohol sweetener out of corn. And you might freak out because it's out of corn, but it's the safest, just about the safest sweetener you could combine stevia with. There's no trace of corn in it. You don't have to worry about allergies. And it's completely calorie-free, does not raise your blood sugar at all. It's a really great ingredient combined with stevia. So if you're looking for it, that's a good one. There's another ingredient called inulin, which is a soluble fiber, which is sweet, and they combine that with stevia. Either one is really good for you. Inulin actually feeds your beneficial bacteria in your colon, so that's a nice added effect from that one. But what makes them all really nice is that you know how much to use because they figured out the dose, and there'll be a chart on it saying how much equals a teaspoon of sugar. So it makes it easy for everybody, and that's the one I would suggest. There's all kinds of them on the market. A lot of them are mixed with maltodextrin and different chemicals, and you might want to avoid those. But you know, it's still better than sugar, really. But look for the ones with erythritol in it, with inulin, and just try them out. I mean, they're all good. They're great sugar substitutes. But remember, if you can get rid of your addiction to sweets, then you probably won't require even buying these things very often because you'll only use them once in a while to make some baked goods. You won't be dumping it in everything you drink or trying to sweeten everything up because that's really a sign of a chemical imbalance in your brain that you crave sweets anyway. So look to correct that, and then you won't have to be looking for sweeteners.